20th today.
20th.
I can hear you clearer on this feed than I can in the room. The microphones are unreal.
You can hear us okay?
Oh, I can hear you better than sitting in the room.
We're live.
Sounds like, oh, it's awesome.
Okay. It's about 7 o'clock.
Tech.
Okay, so it's 7 o'clock. So we'll call the Town of Crossfield regular council meeting for Tuesday, July 20th, 21 to order. The agenda is in front of us. Are there any additions or deletions? If not, can I have a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll move to accept the agenda.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Minutes of the July 6, 2021 regular council meeting. Any errors or omissions? If not, can I have a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved, Mayor.
Okay, all in favor?
Hi.
Do we know for sure if RCMP are coming? Did they indicate they were? Okay, we'll just keep going then, and when they show up, we'll go back to that. Business arising from the minutes, July 6th, annual budget policy 2021-02. Lori?
Okay, so from the last meeting, we had a few changes that we had to make. So just to reiterate what the purpose of the budget policy is for, it's to establish principles and guidelines for the preparation of annual budgets and unbudgeted expenditures. It's also to ensure effective means to deliver services to citizens and to enforce accountability for the proper and prudent management of public funds. So the first item that we needed to look at was 3.6. It previously stated, council shall approve the final budget by March 31st of each year, with the interim budget accepted prior to December 31st of each year. What we did in the revision is expanded a little bit, but kept the date, and I'll explain the reason why. Council shall approve the final budget upon receipt and review of assessment information, original and revised, no later than March 31st of each year, with the interim budget, including capital and operating, being accepted prior to December 31st each year. So the reason we kept it at March was the assessment information has to be submitted to the provincial government and municipalities no later than the end of February. So if we do receive it later, like the third week of February, it still doesn't give us enough time to complete all of the review and calculations that we need to do. So we could have it earlier, but at the very end of the deadline, March 31st would be the final deadline. So if we received it in January, it could be done by the end of February, but they have up until the end of February to send all the information in.
So if you receive it earlier, then we can have it done earlier.
Yes,
And
this is
that's
just
what
the
we'll
final
strive for?
deadline.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
The second point was 4.2. It stated operating multi-year review shall be conducted every 3 years. Capital multi-year review shall be conducted every 5 years. We revised just the wording slightly. 4.2, the town shall adopt a 10-year capital multi-year planning schedule. 4.3, capital and operating multi-year review shall be conducted as outlined in the MGA. So the MGA operating is 3 years and capital's 5. So we didn't want to put the specific time periods in here in case the MGA changes. It's just we're keeping our capital budget on a 10-year as that's what we wanted to do for financials.
Okay.
In 10.1, regarding amendments, we've added the current year. So at the very bottom, I'll just read the whole thing. Capital budgets will be prepared with due diligence with respect to projected costs and will align with good project management methodologies, including stepping through pre-design, design, and construction phases. At times, amendments to the current year capital budget are necessary. And again, on the next one, it's the CAO in conjunction with the finance officer will authorize capital budget amendments up to $100,000, provided the amendment is within the total current year approved budget, because the only year at this point in time that you want to be changing is the current year. And the last piece, there were some comments made on the department budget report. We've added in all of the descriptions for all the drop-down boxes and actually added in a row for project justification. It has a drop-down box, but then you also have to explain further. So all this information is here. Most of them have drop-down boxes, but on the detailed project and the project justification, you have to have all of the information that's required. And those were the changes that we made to the budget policy.
Okay, any questions from anyone?
Yes,
Okay, go for it.
I have a few.
Okay,
So, sorry.
that's okay.
Okay. On, 8.2, number 5. It says the town shall use the September 1st Alberta Consumer Price Index as the target property tax increase. Can you tell me what that index is and how it would be relevant for us?
So on every, so we've actually moved this up to September because the budget time has been moved up. Since I've been doing this, we were using actually the Canadian price index, but we can use the Alberta one. You have to pick a point in time where you're going to use the inflation rate, right? You can't say you're going to work on it. It's going to be this 1.01% or 1.05%. You can't keep changing them. So you have to pick a point in time. This is going to be the date that you're going to use that inflation rate of, and it doesn't change.
Okay, and that's to use the inflation rate, but
Yes.
the budget will also use whatever projects and other things that we have on the go. So that's just one tool that we'll use.
Yes.
Together. Okay.
And that's mainly used for the operating is where you use that inflation rate.
Okay. Excellent. Item 10, 10.1, the first item, the CAO in conjunction with the finance officer will authorize capital budget amendments up to $100,000, provided the amendment is within the total current year approved budget.
So it still has to be within that, the approved
Yep.
budget, but you can move the costs around.
I'm just unsure of the amount and whether or not I'm comfortable or council is comfortable with that amount to be changed in a
Do
budget
you want
year.
it lower than 100,000?
I was thinking.
Looking at 50
yeah,
or even lower?
Yeah, you know, and then
I mean, so-
anything over and above that, you would have to come to council for
Yes.
approval. And, you know, I'm just a little shy about that right now because
Yes, no, I
of
understand.
some
Yes.
recent things that have occurred in the past.
So
year.
normally, if you're working on a budget, unless there's extenuating circumstances, i.e. like the pandemic, the budget doesn't change. The budget
Not-
is
not
what
a
it
lot,
is,
no.
right? And it shouldn't change. So if you have $200,000 for a project, you can't be taking monies from over here and over here, especially in capital and operating, as long as your bottom line for that area stays within your budget, because there will be some up and some down in minor areas. But in capital, you shouldn't be that, like, here's your capital budget, unless there's an emergency, like something falls apart and you have to spend the money. but there shouldn't be
But
these
if
kinds of
they're-
items.
If they're, what, I guess my other question on that would be, okay, so you and the CEO decide to, approve that 100,000 or up to that for a project. When would council find out about it?
Well, it should be within the project. So council should know about it previously, just to be aware. Like for any, to me, any capital projects that you're changing, doesn't matter if you're taking it out of this and putting into this, council should be aware that you're doing that kind of change.
Yeah, so I'm just curious if we can put something like that in here as well.
Sure, I
Just
can
to-
make that.
Almost like they can approve it, but only after council has been fully apprised
Right.
of the rationale.
So you
the
can put a
reason,
comment
the
saying up to
project.
$50,000 or even 25, whatever the dollar
Yeah.
value you wanted, that we could move the costs within that project,
Yeah.
right? Like, so if it was allocated to sewer versus to water kind of thing, you could change whatever
Like if you
dollar
saved
figure you,
here and you overspent
Yes,
here, you get
but-
to maneuver it a little bit.
but to change it within projects themselves, you can't.
Right.
Like, it would need to go to council.
Like from project to project.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would
Yeah.
need to go to council.
Yeah.
So I can put that comment in here if you like.
Yeah, I think we'd be comfortable if
Yeah.
that comment was. in
And then do
there.
you want it at
Something
25?
about having it reported to council, even though they can approve it.
Yeah.
That it has
But
to be after.
Reported to council first.
Yeah,
And
Do you
let's-
want me to drop that dollar value down to 50 or 25?
I would be comfortable with 50.
and I mean, it's a policy, so it can always change too,
Yes.
right? Sorry.
Yeah, and we got to be clear that it is an amendment and not an addition.
Yeah, no, it's an amendment. You
Yeah.
can't make additions
Yes.
unless there's, and normally if you're going to make additions,
Yeah.
you went to capital anyway. It's only going to
Yeah.
be to operating,
Right.
right? Unless something really went off the rails. But
Yeah.
normally, no,
Yeah.
you don't make changes.
Yeah, and this is just for, a circumstance is possibly out of our control. that,
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't spend on one and take that money out of, an allocated project and move it to another one. That's all it is.
Well, that would be a
It's-
discussion of council.
Right.
It'll be.
Yeah, that would be a discussion for
Yeah.
council.
And then I'm
Okay.
just curious too, on 11.1, if we can do the same thing there.
Sure. Yeah,
And
they both,
then-
one's for capital, one's for operating. So
Yeah,
yes.
that's right. And even though it's operating, I am unsure how, unless you're hiring staff or something else, how an operating budget would be up to 75,000.
Well, it shouldn't be, again, unless there's like a
That's right.
pandemic or you're
Right.
hiring a staff member,
Yeah.
right? But that should all have been decided when you're doing the
So I'd
budget in the
be-
first place.
I'd
So
be curious if we can lower that amount too.
to 50,
Yeah.
or do you want to go lower?
I was thinking 25 on that one.
Sure.
I think capital is different than
Sure.
operating. So
I mean, so in operating, I'll just pick operations as an area. As long as the budget line for operating total doesn't go over,
Mhm.
you're okay, because there will be sometimes ones over because you need splash part.
Sure.
Excuse me, for example, had a little bit over this year,
Mhm.
but we've made sure that we took the money out of another one, so the bottom line operating budget will not go over.
Right.
Yeah, and then in conjunction with that, you'd have to change number 2 and 11.1 as well.
Yes,
Okay. And I'm just about done, sorry.
no, that's good.
In number 4, authorization for any amendment must be in place and in writing prior to any transactions being taken place. And so I think this is where maybe we can put that clause that council needs to see this first.
Yeah.
Because even if it's in writing, so what? Council still hasn't seen it, so
Yeah, we'll go through and fix this.
thank you. And then 13.3. Annual increases to staffing shall not exceed the rate of inflation for Alberta as per Stats Canada. I'm just curious.
So normally like all operating has that inflation rate built in. If you're going to be planning on giving, say, a staff member an increase, you should have that information when you're doing the budget during the year, unless there's been,
So
like you
that
would do a
does-
bonus during the year versus doing an increase to somebody's salary.
Oh, we'll never call it a bonus.
But you wouldn't do a salary increase, like if if somebody did an extraordinary job and you gave them an additional, say, $200 or something, that wouldn't be included in their salary. Normally, if you're going to do an increase to somebody's salary and bump it from, say, $20 to 22, that would be done during budget time.
So yes, and so the way this reads to me is that this is automatically done and raises are automatically given every year.
The cost of inflation is given. That's it.
And yet some municipalities, it depends on the year and depends on budgets and whatnot. So is that a policy that we have here?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, but I've been here since
At budget
17.
time, if we decide not to, then that would be part of the budget.
Yes, it would be part of the
deliberation, right?
budget. I just know since I've
Because I
been
know there's
here,
been a couple of years, at least 1 year, where we didn't do anything despite it. Yeah,
yes.
yeah, but this is cost of living, really. Yeah,
And it's been done while I've been here.
yeah.
I haven't looked back to see in previous years because I don't have the files, so
Right.
I can't go back and see
So
what
do-
was done.
So depending on the budget year, this isn't automatic, but council still has a choice to give that cost of
Yes.
living or
Yes.
not give that cost of
Yes,
living.
council still has to go through and review the salary line items, just as like everything else in the budget.
Okay, so I wonder if we can make that wording just a little more clear then.
Okay.
And then just my last point. I think in the addendum, there was not a place to put, and maybe it's in one of the drop-down menus that I didn't see, but just a place to put quotes. Because I don't think that we want staff just giving us justification with a number in there without backup of proof of that's what it's going to cost.
No, if you're doing the detailed project information, they have to give 3 quotes.
Okay,
And that would be part of the backup. That would have to be part of this box.
okay, and that's in one of the drop-downs?
Yes.
or- Okay. Excellent, thank you. Louise.
Yes, they can't just come with 1 item. They have to come with 3 and detail it.
Perfect, thank you.
And while I'm walking through all the budget processes, because we're starting, I'll be walking through every box with all the managers to make sure that they know the information that has to be given.
That sounds great.
All right, with those changes, do we want to go ahead and make a motion or do we, to accept it or a motion that it come back?
I would be comfortable with those changes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we make the
Motion?
changes. We can make the motion. I would be
Okay.
comfortable with
Okay,
that.
so who wants to make the motion that the annual budget policy 2021-02 be accepted as amended?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all right, let's jump back to our delegation. I see that Leaf is here. Leaf, take it away.
I think I was a member on the way at the last minute. So
No worries.
thanks for your patience. I trust everybody's received the stats and the crime gauge indicators from Merrill.
Mhm.
First of all, are there any questions with respect to any of the information you received?
Not really, no.
All right, so I'll interpret a few things here. If you look at the crime gauge itself, the arrows, green and red, it's the Airdrie Provincial Crime Gauge. So it includes Rocky View County, Crossfield, Madden, Balzac, all the communities within the Airdrie Rural Detachment area. The numbers are relatively, well, if not lower or flat when compared to the same quarter from last year. There's a couple red arrows that indicate an increase on select property crimes, 4% increase in the break and enters, 1 more instance, so a low number in total, and a 10% increase in theft under $5,000, 10 more instances. However, in fleshing out the stats for Crossfield specifically today, I can tell you that the numbers for B&Es in town here are actually half of what they were reported to be by our analysts. So I go through every single file that Crossfield receives from April 1st to June 30th over the quarter. And I fleshed them out myself based on my knowledge and experience of the system and what in fact is reportable. So that number I can tell you would be green and down. It's just a civilian analyst getting the numbers out of the system and then giving them to me. So I fleshed them a little further so I can interpret them a little bit better. With respect to the theft under, component, the right-hand bottom right corner, the arrow that says 10% increase. For Crossfield specifically, I can say that there's 6 that would not be, well, at least linked to Crossfield specifically. It'd be Rocky View County. I think I spoke to it before where there's areas such as the rest stop on Highway 2, the mushroom farm, for example. They're not within city limits, correct?
Correct.
So they would not be specific stats to Crossfield proper. So in terms of the numbers, the stat sheet that you have with the columns and rows with the several categories on it, that number is down from 20 to 6 as well for Crossfield. Unfortunately, Rocky View has a great area. They incur a lot more crime than the small towns within the area. But when it comes to Crossfield itself, the numbers are actually better than they're reflected on your quarterly report. So the actual count or the reported count was 77 total. If we can go to the next page, the actual town of Crossfield Energy Detachment statistics, reported criminal code were 77. The actual based on the analyst's review were 70. I went through it more today and it's down to 56. I mean, I can speak to it in detail. For example, other sexual offenses, there's nothing in the database. It might have been reclassified or an error. Assaults are down to 4 from 7. Majority of those are domestics in nature. There's no criminal harassment, no uttering threats. In fact, based on my work I did today, break-in errors, as I mentioned earlier, they're 3 versus 6. There's and just to speak to patterns, there's no patterns. I think I mentioned that last one here. There are no patterns at all, which is a good thing. I'll speak to the prolific offender component as well when I'm saying that the people who unfortunately have given us a few more files to investigate are not in play right now, which is very positive. That from motor vehicles, that's one that I want to speak to in a few moments. It's down from 6 to 4. There was no theft over $5,000 from it was a error in the classification or the assignment of the classification. Theft under $5,000 again is 14 versus 20. I'll speak to that again. Majority are from vehicles, and the other ones are very insignificant. If you ask me, the property mischiefs, if you will, people, suspicious individuals walking through town. Some people are checking doors. So to go back to the theft from vehicles, I wanted to make a point of being proactive in terms of the members of the community locking vehicles. The majority of the vehicles that are rummaged through or mischiefs occur, that's the offense mischief, the vehicles are unlocked. People in my neighborhood in Airdrie, they go through our car doors in my neighborhood too. And once we were victimized, I had changed one of the little area we keep it in the console, and it smelled like an ashtray. They must have smoked a cigarette, but that was our fault for leaving it open. It could have been worse. People have been leaving wallets and purses inside their vehicles too. And that's unfortunately something we should not be doing. And when the vehicle is unlocked, then unfortunately that's what's going to happen. You're going to lose all your cards and your ID and any cash that might be in there. So I'm not sure if we can just relate to the community, lock your doors, remove your valuables, because the call volume will be significantly reduced if we do that. I mean, other crime mitigation things that we can do, leaving lights on, if we can park vehicles in garages, things like that, to take these, I guess the soft targets or the low hanging fruit away from people who are looking through the cars or trying to score a few bucks in change, et cetera, right? The numbers are actually quite low compared to last quarter when I reported, very similar numbers, in fact, overall. So are there any questions with respect to statistics at all that I've shared and that I've explained today?
You've already answered my question, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well done. And that was about the patterns. So.
Yeah, no patterns. Again, the dates, unless it's the only pattern that I could see is, say, we had 10 vehicles entered into over the course of one Saturday night because someone's walking along, checking the doors.
Yeah.
That would be it, just because of the timing.
Right.
Right. Otherwise, nothing major in terms of a serial break and enter ring or whatnot. But the one thing that is still happening at the storage yards are catalytic converters are getting cut out of RVs and making their way to recyclers. And we're working on that right now too. We get recycling reports from the repositories, the places where people can bring precious metals, steel, etc. So we're working with our crime reduction unit to try to reduce those numbers, or try to, because now they have to identify who they are, and reporting is done to the province, because to try to curb the copper theft instances where people are involved and they bring large volumes of metal recycling.
Right.
So steps are being taken to, I guess, try to be proactive and reduce it, but we're still working on it. It's still happening all across the province, unfortunately. In terms of being proactive, I can say that we've had 323 proactive patrols in the community of Crossfield over the last quarter, from April to the end of June. We've had high double-digit traffic enforcement contacts as well. Constable Lawrence, have you met her yet?
Yes.
Yeah, she's been doing a phenomenal job in the community in place of Kirby. She's all in. She's very proactive, very engaged in the work, and I'm very proud of what she's been doing for us and for your community. So
I've heard
kudos to her.
nothing but good things
Yeah.
about her in the community.
Oh, and that's wonderful. And she's great to have on board. And then Inspector Weir alluded to that last time she was here, but she's continuing on with what she's been doing from the beginning. So she's a great resource for us and for you guys to have in place. When it comes to the pilot itself, so Inspector Weir is completing a business case, following that up to the appropriate channels and district and division to get it made, make it permanent. We have processes to follow in our organization that have to be followed. I know the district has been asking for it so they can model other hub areas such as the Airdrie Bicycle integration after what we've been doing here. It's been very successful. Partly due to the great feedback we've been getting from our stakeholders, such as yourselves, in the form of the letter that was drafted supporting the integration. And I said in Air Canada last night, maybe I shouldn't refer to it this way, but I'll bet my job on the fact that this integration is going to become permanent very, very soon. It's kind of an autopilot right now. All the constables are in place. They're doing a great job. Again, Constable Lawrence, as I mentioned earlier, she's part of it, but she's gravy to it. She's like our 17th constable because we have 16 on the watches. So it's all due to what the constables are doing on ground. I know myself, I'm just a face to come and report to you and to share concerns of yours and other communities with them,
right,
so they can go ahead and do the work they have to do. But it's all due to their work and their efforts. So kudos to them as well. But otherwise, that's really all I have to share today. Pending any questions or comments or concerns.
Are there any blitzes throughout the province about, locking the vehicles? I feel like we've told people that, and you can always continue to tell people that. That's definitely something to remind people of. But is there any kind of like catchy little blitz that the province does that, might, I don't know, you hear a certain jingle and it reminds you right away? I
can't
know.
speak to that on a provincial level. I know that we can do things at the detachment level with the respective communities we're involved with. We work with Alberta Transportation, for example, on traffic focuses for the months of the year, say like seatbelt or speeding, etc., child seats, but that's through another government branch to the province. We can do that locally though, through your media out the medium you use.
So I think we mentioned this back in, I think it was around November, December of last year, of doing, having you guys integrated more with our communications person to give some of those messages
Right.
to our community. I don't know if you recall, Meryl, but I haven't seen anything to date. So I'm curious if you could follow up with that and then make the connection between Christine and would it be yourself, Leaf? Or who would that be? Or would it be Sam?
Sam might be your best bet because she's your closest point of contact.
Sure.
You can reach out to me as well though, but she's directly engaged with your community. She's your enhanced member. So I think she would probably be your best point of contact to communicate with regularly on this. And I will do everything to support her and to support the efforts we want to put forward in Crossfield.
Yeah, because I think if it's got the RCMP logo on it, it'll catch people's attention a little bit more than if it's just, a blurb hit, that's kind of headed up by Town of Crossfield.
Sure, a series of videos like for social media or just,
Right.
be creative.
Yeah, maybe,
Okay.
something like that can be integrated into our
News.
letter,
Yeah.
e-news, maybe
Yeah.
once a month.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be every week, but,
Yeah.
No.
maybe once a month.
And on our
Just,
Facebook.
just
and our-
to get her
Yeah.
face out there too
Right.
and,
But we're kind of in this together and we
Right.
need to be helping each other
Of
to
course.
get the message across for our residents.
But it's good and reassuring to see that the numbers that have dropped and, at worst, kind of staying status quo. So that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we're full open now as of July 1st and with the warmer weather and people getting outside, and we talked about the potential for the numbers to kind of skyrocket
Mhm.
because everybody's been pent up inside and not being able to go out.
Mhm.
And we had a big ball tournament in Bicycle, I think 2 weekends ago. It was a great event. There was nothing really to report. We're just happy to be there and had a great time.
Mhm.
And I hope that that's going to be the same thing for all the events, because I'm
Right.
sure Crossfield's going to be having some community events here soon too. And to re-engage people and get them going again. Yeah,
Super.
and I just want to let you know as well, I'm going to be taking some leave here at the end of this week for an extended period, not too long, but Inspector Weir, or I say more Sam, also Lawrence, would be your best point of contact to reach out to, because I'm going to be taking a bit of time off myself. So,
Okay.
But just want to let you know.
All right.
Thank you.
Any
Sounds
other
good.
questions?
I'm good.
Councillor Knight?
Oh, I'm good.
Super. Well, thank you very much for your information and much appreciated.
No, you're welcome.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for your time.
And we'll see you when you get back.
Have a good night.
Okay, bye for now. Okay, item 5.2, Assessment Review Board Bylaw. Anybody want to speak to that, or we've already gone through, we just need to be giving it second and third reading?
Third,
Oh,
Third-
sorry,
third
third and
reading,
final.
yes.
Looking right at it and read it different. Okay, somebody want to give bylaw 2021-08, the Assessment Review Board Bylaw, third and final reading?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and that's carried. 5.3, Railway Street Loading Zone. Mustafa?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as per the last council meeting, council had requested that we go back and have a discussion with the business owner in regards to their vision of what they see their loading zone looking like. So just to quickly go through the report, the first couple paragraphs are kind of repeat of the last council meeting itself, indicating that we did the turning movement analysis, indicating that single axle heavy vehicles can make that vehicle movement itself. The second component itself is an alternative in regards to if they do not want to park in the back alley. The alternative is to park up front, put a concrete pad. But again, there were a couple of different components of it that they would have to handle. That would include communicating with the landowner, getting all the approvals, ensuring that they pay for it and everything like that with a couple images. So the third component itself was, so Barry himself proposed that we put 2 additional panels of concrete right next to where the boulevard is, connecting the existing area. So right now, the initial concept cost of that was about $6,500. The reasoning behind why that concrete costs so much more than what we have in the contract price, reasoning being that the contractor has completed all their concrete work, so they would have to charge a mobilization cost. On top of that, that concrete itself needs to be reinforced. So we've also created a diagram for you guys on the next page, kind of showing you what that looks like, gave you a overhead view of what the existing is and where the 2 additional will go, as well as we drew up a diagram of what the 3 panels would look like in real life itself. For the concept plan itself that Barry would like, we found that it's a viable option itself. The only thing that we looked at was, one of the things that we stated for the option itself is that the cost itself has to be borne by the taxpayer, or sorry, by the business owners and not the taxpayers itself. Just being that it is an improvement for the business. The other component was when he was discussing it itself, what he stated was if he opens up his doors, the pallets cannot get past the door. So I had a really hard time justifying the municipality paying for it because realistically, you can shut the doors, put your panel back, open the doors and take it in, the pallets itself. So when it comes down to it, administration's recommendation was to utilize the back alley of the arches for the loading and unloading. And the second component being that the 2 additional panels of the concrete be poured along the north side of the storefront itself at the owner's expense. And if they do damage any concrete in the future, that'd be at the owner's expense as well. And if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Just a couple of comments, and I'd asked you for a little bit of information because I wasn't at the last council meeting. But part of the reason that you did the measurements the way you did with a single vehicle is because a tractor trailer unit can actually make a tighter corner than a single, like a large fire truck, correct?
Exactly. So basically, the fire trucks itself typically have the worst turning radius when it comes down to it. That's why we usually utilize the fire truck itself.
Okay.
We wanted to use something that's a more accurate representation of what they brought in. That's why we use a single axis heavy vehicle itself. The other component was at the last council meeting itself. I don't want to be putting words into Barry's mouth, but I believe he stated that the delivery trucks that they had could make that movement, and their only concern now was the concrete itself.
Now, I have a question on the loading, like where they want those 2 extra blocks by the door.
Yes.
And you'd pointed that out to me as well. And I mean, in the dead of winter, they're not going to have their door open the whole time while they're unloading. So, you know, the comment about them closing the door in between deliveries, like I would think they would even want that because I don't know that there's even multiple staff there, so that leaving that door open, anybody walking by would basically have access to the store. Like, I think you normally do close your door in between. I don't know, but, and I'm just thinking in the wintertime, it would be too cold to do it. But I would certainly think it would have to be at their expense because that would be the only reason to put it there. But
For sure.
comments, questions? Councillor Knight?
I think the reason that the tenant was concerned about the size of the concrete that's there, Mustafa, when you were talking with him, was the snow in the winter his concern about why he wanted the additional concrete?
When it comes down to it, so with snow clearing itself, we have to, basically clear out the whole sidewalk itself. If the whole component comes down to, well, there might be snow against the wall, then we would have to do this upgrade along the whole stretch up to the access point itself. Reason being is he basically, when I was out there and when I had the discussion with him, he showed me a picture of where the pallets would go. And he was like, oh yeah, I can make the clearance all the way through. But then for us to actually get around the door, we need the 2 additional panels, is what he stated. So if it comes down to his concern being that the snow is going to be against the wall and there won't be enough room, what we would have to do is basically that whole boulevard up to that, basically the entrance of the back alley would have to be concrete. But based on the discussions I had, he said he wants the 2 panels itself.
And realistically, if you close the door in between the delivery of the pallets, the way it is now would work. But because he prefers to have the doors open to make that corner to go in with the pallets is why he's asking for the 2 extra panels, correct?
That is my assumption on there. My comment to that was, well, we could technically close the doors and you can still make that movement. But again, he's the one operating it and I'm not there. So I don't want to be, again, putting words into his
I guess
mouth.
I'm just curious, why doesn't he just change his door?
That would be a question for him. I don't know how to answer
To
that.
go
sorry.
in,
Not to go in, but if he's coming from that end and the door opens that way,
it's a double door. They open both.
he could still change the door to a different door.
I think that might have to do with fire code itself, where
Maybe.
it says your emergency, he could use it as an emergency exit, where it has to be
Has to
shooting
be
out.
Yeah, it has to be
Yeah,
out,
it
but
has to
now
be
it's a
out,
double
yeah.
door, right?
Yeah.
So the one side comes out like this, but you could get a bigger door that
I
swings
think that
out
would be a
only
lot
the
more
one
money
way.
than putting concrete
Yeah, and
down.
you're
that might
Pallets
be.
Yeah.
through the door.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, again, that would be a question for him,
Yeah.
so I would not know how to answer that, sorry.
I think
It really doesn't matter to me, but.
what they've done or what they've come to a realization is, I think it's the best solution for everybody.
For sure.
So at this stage, those two sections that we would pour would be the heavier concrete. They'd still come down the residential sidewalk. And then if our concern is that section of sidewalk can't take the 1,000-pound pallets on a continuous basis. So if it does damage that, our hope is, well, we would ask for that, is that they set money basically, deposit it with the town, try it for a year. If that rest of that sidewalk to the alley is damaged, that then at their cost, it would be taken out and reinforced concrete put in that could handle it. Is that correct?
Exactly. Technically speaking, it should handle it, but being that it's reaching the maximum weight there is that possibility that it would break. So when you are bringing pallets of that nature with that weight, typically you would want that concrete reinforced. And typically sidewalks are usually 4 inches for pedestrian traffic itself. When you do reinforce them, they go to 6-inch concrete, kind of give you that extra weight and to be able to handle all that on top of the reinforced steel that's in there.
But we should be able to tell that within a year, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And that will kind of help it, that will help it settle as well over time as well with all the excess weight that's going on too.
And again, for me, one more question for clarification. Those 2 extra panels of sidewalk, we think are about $6,500. Is that correct?
Yeah, the reasoning behind 6,500, again, one was mold. The other thing is there's a lot of topsoil that's there that we put in because of the boulevard. We would have to excavate the boulevard. We'd have to get a smaller backhoe in there. It can't be the standard ones. So those costs kind of do add up when it comes down to it. And the reasoning why we didn't recommend a full, getting rid of all the concrete itself is we are fairly confident that it could stand that load. And the other component of it is we just don't want to interrupt those businesses again when we've already poured that concrete once. So it's better to see what that looks like in a year. And if it holds up, then most likely it'll hold up the whole time itself.
And those 2 sections are at the request of the business.
Yes. And the only thing that he requested is that the town pay for it, which administration could not support.
Right. No. Okay. That answers my question. Thank you. Any other questions?
None for me.
No. Councillor Knight?
Sorry, my unmute button worked. My question was, what does Mustafa just answer? What was Barry's reply when we discussed the cost? But he just mentioned that Barry wants us to pay for it. So that was the question I had.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, so his response basically at the last council meeting was when he made this request was that that the downtown project take on the cost, and our response to that itself is we haven't gotten a reply from Barry, but I did send him a copy of this report. We haven't gotten a response from him as of right now, but he would be in favor of us paying for it. It's just that administration couldn't support paying for something that benefits a private business when the taxpayers are paying for it.
Okay. All right. So
I do, Mayor Tennant, I
Yes.
do have a question. So if they do proceed, is there going to be a written contract between the town and the business owner for, in case a year from now, the concrete has to be replaced?
We would have to do a full contract with that, yes. So, and like Mayor Tennant stated, we would also have to put in some sort of security deposit in case something does break and they decide that, okay, we do not want to pay for it, because it's really difficult to try to get someone to pay for it if there is no security deposit, and going through the court system is not really an option because it ends up costing you a lot more.
then at the end of a year, if there was no damage, no significant wear and tear, they would get their damage deposit back.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And then, yeah, okay. For their damage deposit, whatever. Okay. So staff recommendation is here that administration recommends utilizing the alley behind the Arches building for loading and unloading, and 2 additional panels of concrete be poured along the north storefront boulevard at the owner's expense. If that meets with everybody's wishes, can I have a motion for that, please?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Councillor Knight? In favor or opposed?
Opposed.
That is carried. All right, item 6.1, application for subdivision 1031 Western Drive. We have Sarah and Darby. Take it away.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council, for having us here. It's nice to see everybody in person. So this is a subdivision application for 1031 Western Drive. It is a single lot subdivision application for 3.03 hectares or 7.5 acres. It's in the heavy industrial district, or I3, and the applicant is Bernie Thomas on behalf of a numbered company. So the current lot is accessible from Western Drive and it operates as an office. This was facilitated by a development permit that was approved in 2019 to facilitate that use. The major changes to the site that were part of that DP were the inclusion of the parking area, which moved from the north central portion of the lot, it moved from the northeastern corner to the north central portion of the lot. And there are two accesses currently off of Western Drive, one which would be on the subdivided lot, and then another in the northeast corner, and both are currently available to access the current use. The site contains one existing main building, one garage, one shelter, two gravel parking lots, one on the northeast corner and one on the west side of the main building. There is a well which is accessed from inside the main building, as well as a septic tank and field. The application is to subdivide 3 acres from the 7.5 acre parent parcel. And the subdivision meets all of the criteria in the land use bylaw. As per the MGA, the town of Crossfield can take 10% municipal reserve. And this has been discussion with the applicant. It was recommended based on the industrial zoning. Administration and urban systems recommended that we take cash in lieu for the MR dedication, which is often done just to consolidate land, municipal reserve land in residential areas or commercial areas where it's more accessible to the public. However, this lot is unique as it borders the golf course, which is town land. So we have been talking with the applicant about the possibility of dedicating municipal reserve in land, which could then be absorbed into the golf course. So that's the Collicut Siding Golf Course, which borders the west and the south of the existing parent parcel. And just for council's information, to the north and east are industrial lands that are also zoned I3 or heavy industrial. So we will, when we go through the conditions, we can come back and revisit the discussion on MR, but just for your information, it was circulated to all of the internal and external circuli referees. And there were no objections and some responses that are attached to the report. The only responsive that we wanted to note in here was from MPE Engineering. And that was just that each property would be responsible for management of stormwater on their own parcel, as well as we don't have details of what would be proposed on the new parcel. So they just flagged that any development that comes forward, they would like to see, they would just like to fit it in with the sanitary requirements. And that would all be part of future development processes. Our recommendation on behalf of administration is that council approve the subdivision application for 1031 Western Drive, subject to the conditions, which are all standard, but I would flag number 4, which is that prior to plan approval, municipal reserve requirements shall be satisfied by the dedication of land or payment of cash in lieu to the satisfaction of the town of Crossfield. And this, I believe, is where we are looking for council direction on which option would be preferred. And I do have information about either option if you have questions. And like I said, all of the other conditions are fairly standard. The other one of note would be condition 7, being that if servicing is available at the property line at the time of future development, prior to development permits being issued, the owners of both parcels shall be required to connect to municipal services at no cost to the town. So that's if and when the services are brought down Western Drive, which currently they are not.
And it doesn't matter when we bring them down, they would, we're asking them to tie in.
When they're available, yes, that would be at no cost to the town of Crossfield.
Yeah, there are lines down to the golf course, but
Mhm.
I thought the sewer was the thing that kept freezing up at the golf course. Oh, okay. Hmm. Yeah. Okay.
I was told that.
Yes.
Right,
I,
exactly.
I
And
agree.
that's the sewer
Yeah,
line,
absolutely.
right? That's the
Right, yeah.
sewer line, right? Yeah. Yeah. Because, but the history of it is that the golf course put the sewer line in and it wasn't ever put into depth. And so it continuously freezes in the wintertime.
There is a line there. As the station is at my.
I think so. I think they do.
Okay. Maxfield, okay. But if that's a private lift station, then you're kind of at their mercy, right? Yeah, okay. So it's not a town. Yeah, I'm just thinking, my question was it a town lift station or a private one? Because then, you know, there's different considerations, right? Yes, if it read. And where's our closest lift station or our closest connection for these? Right. Gravel starts. So just a point of conversation, if part of the line is Strike and it's private and part of the line is Maxfield and it's private, at what point does the town service take over? I guess it would always just be a private to that property, wouldn't it? Much like your own home from your property line in. Okay. Right. Right. Okay. And currently, because if Strike is a private line and if they were going to Maxfield, then it would be an arrangement in between them and either Strike or them and Maxfield for the cost and the, like the utility bill and all that kind of thing, right? The town wouldn't be involved in that at all. Yeah. I just see that, you know, if and not to say that it shouldn't be permitted, but I could see where in the not too distant future, especially if, you know, there was an arrangement in between 2 or 3 private companies where that could end up being a problem in a hurry. And their capacity.
The building itself, technically, I guess I'm going to leave back to yourself at their building. So, somebody else, I do not have to, and there would have sort of
Mhm. Does the town ever provide, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyways. Does the town ever provide service for plugged sewer lines? Like if something happened in between these businesses, and does the town go in and clear lines at all? Only town lines? Right. Right, okay.
No, that's great. Thank you.
All right.
I think what I'd like to propose adding is just to clarify, add public servicing, if public servicing is available,
Mhm.
just to make sure that we're very clear about that.
Yeah,
Right,
that's fair.
all right. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I'm curious, you said it was a numbered company, but what is the nature of the business? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yep.
And
Kim, what was the answer? And I couldn't hear it. What was the answer to the nature of the business?
construction company?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm just curious to talk about, I guess, the land designation and or 10%.
Any other questions before we get into that?
No, that's
Okay,
the only thing I'm worried.
do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, so the two options, the typical one, which is probably very familiar to council, would be the dedication of land. So that's just 10%. You see that often as, for example, parks that or pathways, anything that's dedicated as municipal reserve at the time of subdivision. The other option, which is somewhat less common, is cash in lieu. So that involves the applicant getting a third-party appraisal of the value of the land. And then it's simply 10% of that value is owed to the town. It's less common because typically in subdivisions, the applicants prefer to provide it in land rather than cash upfront. So there are definitely trade-offs. In this case, it is a unique situation because the golf course is right there. But what I believe we would ask is that the consolidation, because this would be a separate parcel, which would be delineated through the subdivision that the applicant submits, which would, if you look at page 5 of the report, currently it's not shown on that. So they would be required to show the actual land that would be dedicated as municipal reserve. So instead of having 2 lots, you'd have 3. That third lot being the municipal reserve parcel that would equate to 10% of the land.
And what is that in acres or amount? What does that equal?
Is 0.3 acres. Yeah, so it's a somewhat small area. We did get in contact with the golf course to have that discussion to see if that, and when I say golf course, it was the manager of the golf course, not the golf course board, who would still need to be involved in any future processes. But just to get a sense of whether that was something that would appeal to them to have that additional land for their use. And they said they would be open to talking about it if council did want to go forward with the actual land dedication. But again, there would be, we would need to go through the board and just make sure that was something that they would like to do as well.
Because we would want something on file too, to say that they're in favor of it
Exactly.
as well as, you know, if council is. Right,
Well, it would be as per their lease.
Yeah.
It would just be a letter from them saying we're okay with
Yeah.
it, but
Or
the
they have
decision would
interest in-
really land with council.
oh, for sure,
Yes.
yeah.
Decision does not count. Does the board have merit? And
Right.
It would be a good.
Well, I-
Or how that use would benefit the town in any way.
That's right. Because I would want to see it on a map, because it's one thing to give it to the golf course and not saying they don't want it, not saying it isn't a good idea, but for the overall access of people, which is basically what you're looking at with municipal reserve, that doesn't really give it full access to everybody. So then the cash you could put into a park for whatever you decide you want to do.
Or another amenity.
Or another
Yeah.
amenity, and then it would be more to the benefit of everyone possibly than just the golf course. So I'd want to see where it is and how it actually adds, because I mean, there's lots of open space at the golf course, and just to add more open space, I don't know that that's the best idea or the best
That's
use of
my thoughts
MR.
as well.
Yeah,
And just to add to what Eric said, I mean, fashion is not common, but because it's industrial.
Yep.
And because it's open for discussion. Fashion blue, should that be the option? Whatever. Go part.
Yeah.
mhm. We can't change our mind for the purpose of this. We can't say we're going to go with cash in lieu and then say, well, now that we've had a chance to talk to the golf course, then maybe we'll, do the municipal reserve over there. Like, I'd want to see, first of all, how that all looks. That would be my thought.
Yeah.
we have-
Minute.
Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Knight.
Do we have any idea what the estimated value of that land is for that 10% value? Does anybody have a rough budget number or any idea what that is?
Yes, good question. And the applicant did provide us with the most recent sale. The sale price was 680,000. So that works out to 85,000 per acre. That, again, moving forward in this process, we would look to the applicant to provide a third-party appraisal of the land. So that's the current value of the land from this date. But this was the sale price. And great that the applicant could provide us with that right now.
Okay, so the sale price was 850, so that's 885 per acre.
680,000 was
Oh,
the sale
sorry,
price,
okay.
and then 85,000 per acre.
And this municipal reserve is
0.3.
0.3. Okay. Gotcha.
About 24 grand.
So it doesn't break the bank, but it's still towards,
Well, I'm sure we can do a lot of nice things for,
Well,
I know, yeah.
and
Sure.
10% is the recommended as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, that's true. I just would want to see that added, like a map of that added to the golf course and see what that looks like. And I would like feedback from the golf course as to what that would mean added on to the golf course.
yeah, it may or may not add value.
Exactly.
So,
That's why I say, like, if it's just more open space, then, then I'd rather have the money to do something else somewhere else.
And those are things that we can coordinate with the applicant.
Mhm.
part 3.
Yeah. Right.
As far as that area,
Mhm.
that was sort of why apartment there. Benefits. Honestly, I'd rather not pay cash. Because the reason I'm selling land, and trying to get my mortgage as low as possible. We saw it as a bit of a win-win for us, but more land.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I appreciate that. We've got a lot of ratepayers that want us to do the best with every opportunity to, right? So
This sounds like a field trip, Mayor.
there you go.
Yeah, because I was going to comment, I was actually out there yesterday.
Yeah.
Business wise, so I saw where the
Yeah.
land was.
And I mean, it still has to go by the golf board as well. So
Yeah, well, there's
yeah.
kind of like an L,
Mhm.
and there's no access unless you go through his property, and it's a grade adjacent, so there's no access anywhere else to it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I get that.
For the
Um,
towns, access to it.
Okay, so at this stage, I don't really think we're ready to make a motion on it. Could we make a motion to table it?
Like, can make that subdivision has, condition 4 reads prior to non-full municipal reserve requirement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep, true. That's true. Okay.
The fact that we, sort out the MR requirement.
Okay, yeah, because I think that's what's hanging us up on this. Yeah, that works in. Okay,
And then we would bring the information back to council
Sure.
prior to endorsement.
Yeah, the information from the golf course and what value that lends to the overall.
all right. So then, in my opinion, we can go ahead. Does somebody want to make that motion? The proposed motion is that the subdivision for file number 2021-598000.S.1 to subdivide 1.12 hectares or 3 acres to facilitate the sale of a portion of the existing for land legally described as a portion Northwest 322815M 1031 Western Drive be approved in accordance with section 654 and 655 of the Municipal Government Act, subject to the conditions as outlined.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there you go. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, actions and decisions, Railway Street budget update.
Do you want to go through it line by line with us? I'm kidding.
What time is it?
How many hours is that?
Summarize.
Okay, well, good evening again. So as council had requested, we have provided a cost update for the Railway Street project itself. So this is the cost to complete as of June 15th, 2021. For the cost itself, this was not public information, just being that unit prices are considered privileged information. So all of council has been provided with the information, but the general public has not been provided with that information. So just to kind of give you guys some background on it, initially for preliminary design, there was about $200,000, which was approved in 2019. Once preliminary design was complete, administration proceeded with detailed design and tendering of the project. And after the tendering, Professional Excavators was selected as a successful contractor for an amount of $10,125,000. So the total approved budget for this project was $10,325,000. Sorry, that does not make sense. So $10,325,000. So the downtown project itself is coming to completion. As discussed right prior to the meeting, we did the CCCC, which is the conditional construction completion inspection today. It fared pretty well. They just had some minor issues that they had to resolve. So the project itself is functional itself. So we are giving them till the 30th to make those final adjustments that they need to make. And then we will be basically monitoring it for the next 8 months just to see how it holds up and what some of the issues are there, and then kind of addressing that later on. So the downtown project itself currently right now is the estimate to complete is about $10,050,286.16. And this is basically $274,713.84 under budget. So the amount itself will be carried over to the 2022 budget. As stated, we will be monitoring to see what changes and stuff that are required. There are a couple other items that council has discussed, so we will be looking at that as well, such as the entry feature sign on this end as well. The breakdown has been given to council. So I don't know if anybody has exact questions in regards to it, but we'd be happy to take any questions that you guys may have.
One thing that I would like is it would be fairly broad, but kind of a synopsis for the public so that we could, and I'm not, these are just random categories maybe, but you could do one for like water, the water line, the wastewater line, and the storm sewer, and then one for pavement and one for concrete, and then one for kind of landscaping, like broad enough that nobody can get the exact per item information, which like you say is privileged information, but to give people a really good overview, because even if they were given this to this detail, I mean, even for us, going through it line by line by line, I want to see something with some fairly broad
Yeah.
definitions as well and the overall cost for them.
Just your, like,
For sure.
on page 10, the summary of costs.
Mhm.
Summary of costs, that's what the mayor's looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So what we can do is for sure, we'll make a document. What I'm waiting for is this, once these final invoices come this month, that will give us the exact value that we've spent to date. And what we can do is actually produce a document that's more showing the outline of what the approved budget was, what each component included and what the amounts were, just to be open and transparent. So that's totally possible. And we will set something up. And then what we'll do is we'll post it on social media and everything like that, just to kind of get that message out and kind of show where that's at.
That would be appreciated.
Because I think it's really important that even if it comes in $1 under budget, that it comes in under budget and that we have clear information out there so that the public has access to it.
Of course.
Yeah, and I think Mustafa, you could use your summary of costs, you know, I don't know if you want to break it down for, you know, each schedule, but you could, you know, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
You know, you've got,
We might do a couple pages on it. What we'll do is,
yeah, I think that might be wise
Yeah.
to do a couple pages because being able to, you see a big number, but when you break it down like
Yeah.
the side streets or from this portion to this portion, this is what it costs for, you know, the
Yeah.
landscaping and, you know,
I would, the idea, I
people will
think,
appreciate that.
for sure. The idea, I think right now I have, based on what the mayor stated, is we'll do one main page, which will show you what the original budget was, what we came in at. Then we'll go into a second page, kind of showing you the breakdown of every single infrastructure component. And then the third page, we can probably do a breakdown block by block saying, okay, out of that X amount was spent on road here, X amount was spent on road there,
Yeah.
kind of giving them a better idea. So that's just to kind of show them out there. And I think that will be totally fine. And I think if somebody can guess the unit prices on that, well,
Yeah, and just make
let me
it
know.
really easy for them to read.
exactly. And we'll try to make it as visual as possible when it comes down to it. So I think that's more than a fair ask. So we
Because
can
this
do
is a
that.
huge project and we want to be as transparent as possible. And again, you know, I warned you if it went over budgeted, where the money was coming from, right?
We are under, so
Okay.
so far so good.
All right.
Keep it that way.
Any other questions?
None for me.
It does look good.
Lots of positive feedback, actually.
Yeah.
I got information from a family that used to live here, came back here for an event and could not believe how the main street looked. And feedback from the businesses. I sent pictures to my son who grew up here and he's like, I wouldn't even recognize the street. Like, it's just amazing. And it looks very visually appealing. And that's something we've tried to do for a long time, or, you know, has been on the wish list of residents for a long time. And it's really reassuring to see people sitting at the picnic tables, like at the donut shop and, you know, in front of the post office. I mean, there was always a bench there for years, but you see more and more people sitting along those benches and,
There's always somebody
yeah,
sitting there.
and it's really being well used. So it's good to see.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. But again, we will monitor for the next 8 months.
Yeah.
So if council does see something that is not working, we do ask that please inform us and we will make a list.
Perfect.
We will also be putting out a general statement in the media as well, on all our social media platforms to kind of, you know, if there is something that you guys come across and say, hey, this does not work, we'll take a look at it and we'll see if there are ways that we can improve it. Because again, we do have the next 8 months to kind of monitor that situation.
I'm
kind of
just
go from there.
curious too, will you be doing like kind of a grand opening of the downtown?
Yes, so we are in the works of planning something out for a grand opening. So currently, Eris, myself, and Christina have had initial conversations, just trying to balance some ideas. Just because the next few months kind of look like there's a lot of events happening, so we want to try to basically piggyback off on another event, because if we have too many events, it just makes it really difficult for a lot of people to come. So we're trying to get as many people to come to the opening as possible, while also ensuring that we're not taking away from other events such as the farmers market and stuff like that.
Perfect.
Get your
Okay.
scissors
Sounds
ready there, Mayor.
Exactly. Councillor Knight, any questions?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for the information,
Thanks,
Mustafa.
Mustafa.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Mustafa.
Thanks.
Okay, under Mayor and Councillors' business, Mountain View Regional Water Services Commission meeting. We do have a manager hired for the commission now, and the successful candidate was Rick Blair, who is a counselor from the town of Carstairs. So he resigned from the board and has taken on that position. And I think he'll be a great benefit to the Water Commission. He has a lot of expertise and has been on the board for a long time as well. So I think it'll be a good fit. And then if anybody's interested, there's information here, Marigold Library System annual report, their financial statements, and an update on their headquarters. I'll leave that in my mailbox if anybody is interested in reading that. And I believe that's all I had. Deputy Mayor Harris.
Just a short update on hiring of the new CEO. We're in the tail end of that process, and we're hoping to have somebody in place here by mid-August or so.
Okay. Councillor Cornessa.
The only thing I could think of right now is there will be an event that Eris is organizing. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag because it's her deal, but the Rodeo Society and the town are working together for the event in August.
Excellent. Okay. Councillor Gustafson.
Just to touch on what Deputy Mayor Harris had talked about, the hiring of the new CEO and the process that we're going through. Just excited about the applicants that we're going to be meeting and over the next week, and excited to go through that process.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Excellent. Councillor Knight.
No, that's all. I've got nothing, just that CEO discussion, so I'm good. Thanks.
Thank you. Administrative update.
The only thing I have to add this evening is just a reminder to the residents that council recess will take place on August, and council will
Perfect. Okay. Under correspondence, we have a letter from Alberta Justice and Solicitor General, and it's to Airdrie District Victims Assistance Society. When the mayors met online with the various government departments, one of the questions around policing and such is the victim services. And because we're part of, or Airdrie District serves this area, I asked a question on their behalf because there's a really a time of real transition on the funding, and it could impact the way they can serve our area. So I had some questions on that, and then they addressed the response to our Airdrie District group. So that's just for information. And does somebody want to make a motion that we just receive it?
So moved, Mayor.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Right. Gallery questions. Sorry? Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Any questions
Any questions?
as the intern?
you're more than welcome to.
Councillor Gustafson, did you have something?
No, I'm good.
Okay, upcoming events are listed and motion to adjourn.
Also move.
All right. That one we don't have to vote
We
on.
don't have to vote on that.
Yep, done deal. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Thanks for time being here.
You
Thanks,
got it.
Okay, we'll see you.